So now, a word from our sponsor, AARP. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Nancy Lamont, the Executive Vice President and Chief Advocacy Officer and Engagement Officer with AARP. Before Nancy begins, please direct your attention to the video screen for a brief video on behalf of our sponsor.
My name's Larry Zarzecki, and I'm a retired law enforcement officer. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's approximately 10 years ago. I had no alternative than to retire. It was devastating. My medication allows me to function as close to a well-functioning human being. The cost of prescriptions is so out of control. One of my medications is $3,000 for a 30-day supply. People every day are making choices. Do I want to pay my gas and electric, or do I want to pay for one of my medications? Prescription drugs do not work if you cannot afford them. Let's join together. Reach out to your congressman, reach out to your U.S. senators. Call on Congress to stop RX greed and pass tough legislations to cut drug prices. Not tomorrow, not the day after. Please help me accomplish this now.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for being here with us. Thank you to the Hill for sponsoring this with us. And thanks especially to Senator Baldwin and Senator Braun, who you'll see in a moment, not only for taking time out today, but also for their leadership on lowering drug prices. The video you just saw with Larry Zarzecki and his struggle with Parkinson's disease and the cost of his medication, in addition to the stories that Senator Baldwin just related, really captures why AARP is so focused on doing something about the high cost of prescription drugs. At kitchen tables across America, real families are confronting the same question. How do we pay for the medication we need and still have enough to cover mortgage or rent, put food on the table, and pay the bills? Extensive research done by AARP's Public Policy Institute underscores this tough reality for families. The average annual cost of a brand name drug used on a chronic basis has more than tripled in the last decade, going from roughly $1,800 in 2006 to around $6,800 in 2016. That's a steeper increase than the overall rate of inflation in that time period. If drug prices had increased just by the inflation rate over 10 years, that price tag would have been more than $4,000 lower, about $2,200 for the year. That's real money for everybody. This is obviously a huge issue for AARP's constituency of Americans age 50 and up. Older adults today take an average of 4.5 medications each month, usually for a chronic condition, so they'll need to keep taking those drugs to stay healthy for their entire lives. And this can add up to more than, for many of them, $30,000 a year. And one thing we know is this isn't just a problem for older Americans. The Kaiser Family Foundation found earlier this year that 6 in 10 of all Americans report taking at least one prescription drug medication, and 1 in 4 take 4 or more. Close to 30% say they haven't taken their medication as directed because of the cost. They're cutting bills in half, skipping doses, substituting an over-the-counter medication based on their own decision, or simply not filling the prescription at all. So the question becomes, and the question we're addressing today, is what can be done to solve the problem? Poll after poll shows a consensus among Americans across parties and ideologies, across age, income, and gender, that something must be done to hold down drug costs. And there's even widespread agreement on a whole host of policy solutions. Earlier this year, AARP surveyed likely voters age 50 and over. There was 90% support or higher among Democrats, Republicans, and independents for making it easier to bring generic drugs to market and allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices. There was between 80 and 90% support among Democrats, Republicans, and independents for requiring drug companies to publicly disclose how prices are set, allowing states to negotiate drug prices, closing loopholes that allow the makers of brand-name drugs to extend the time before competitors can sell generics, and putting a cap on Americans' out-of-pocket drug costs. Now, you don't need a PhD in political science to know that there aren't very many 80 to 90% issues these days that were agreed to by Republicans, Democrats, and independents. This one simply doesn't have the traditional fault lines we see every single day. So we ask ourselves, what can be done? And I'll leave it to others to prognosticate on that question, and also we're going to have an opportunity to talk to Senator Braun in a moment. But what I can say, and this is from somebody who's been in this field many, many years, there is more momentum today than we've seen in Washington for a long time, and certainly since the creation of Medicare Part D nearly 20 years ago. The President has made clear that lowering drug costs is a priority. AARP supported the administration's move to require that drug companies disclose list prices in their consumer advertising, and we were deeply disappointed in the court ruling that blocked implementation of that rule. The Senate Finance Committee is marking up a bill today, as we've referenced already, that was put together in a bipartisan way by Senator Grassley and Senator Wyden. And there's another bill being developed right now in the House of Representatives. These are all good signs, but we know there's a long road from the committee rooms and leadership offices to the Senate and the House floors, and then to the President's desk to sign something into law. The American people don't always have a lot of trust and faith in those of us in Washington, D.C., and we hope this is going to be one example where they can place their trust in all of us, whether they're legislators or advocates, to deal with issues that really, really matter. Thank you again so much for being here, and look forward to the rest of the program.